remember we last spoke. I mean, I kind of want to go into more in your early life before we get into you being, playing for PSG, etc. Now being obviously, representing as a pundit, etc. But now, obviously, you want to kind of talk into your early life as, being from Afghanistan, your early life, etc. What gave you the aspirations, but at the same time, the drive to become a footballer? Because it's a very unique job for a woman. As you know, the world is very changing now. And obviously, women's football is becoming extremely successful. What gave you the opportunity and how did you get your passion?
I would say it was fate. For the people who don't really know me that much, really long story short, born in Afghanistan, had to flee the country with my mom and siblings because my father was executed by the Taliban, and somehow I was stranded or ended up in a refugee camp in northern part of Denmark, where was introduced to football because next to the refugee camps there were these amazing football fields. And first time I saw the game in person, first time I discovered that girls were allowed to play, and the freedom that I could see in their faces, the joy. Yeah, I fell in love with the game, and I think since then I haven't really let it go. It has taken me everywhere around the world. Played over 100 caps for the Danish national team, as you mentioned, played for some of the biggest teams in the world on the women's side, PSG, Man City, and so on. And in terms of aspiration, motivation, I think I was a kid who probably was a bit traumatized and suddenly discovering the power of sports, that you can kind of disappear in it. And also at the same time, it teaches you values through play. And I think I needed that escape at that moment, at that time, and now I live of it, and I'm so grateful that I had the chance to get to know football. And you said, we live in a world where football is not accessible for every woman, and you're so right. And my hopes and dreams are that it could be not football but sports in general, because it has a tremendous power to change lives.
No, absolutely, Nadia. It's great that you made a great statement there. Now, I want to go back into your early life, as you said before, voluntarily about your father, and also at the same time about the Taliban. We recently interviewed Sahel Shaheen, who was the Taliban spokesperson from Doha. I mean, he currently was at Doha at the time, and we spoke specifically. Now, in terms of what he said, and I kind of want to know from you because obviously you are Afghanistani. Now, they say that Afghanistan is more settled. They say it's more the women rights, etc. Now, what's your thoughts on that? We will talk more about football and your life, but I just want to know from your perspective and your personal opinion.
I think, I still have family in Afghanistan, and I know I keep being informed what's happening. I follow the news. I think it's unfortunate because, to start with, football is not even in discussion right now. We are talking about the women and girls not even allowed to go have an education. I feel it's so hard to understand this mindset. Imagine 50% of the population do not have access to education. They only are allowed to, I think, till their 12th, 6th grade or something, which for me is mind blowing. How can you not tap into that source of power? How can these women later on have a future? The world is changing in such a fast pace, and then you have one country where it just seems to has stopped. So I disagree. I think now I'm an athlete, but and we're talking about sports, but for me the first thing will start with school education, and then sports is also part of, like, a different way of education. But I think that discussion is so far away right now. We haven't even done the basics. The basic is everyone should have access. There's a human right, access to school and education. And then, yes, sports should be a part of it. And it saddens me, as I said, what kind of future are these, like, women facing?
No, absolutely, Nadia, absolutely. Now, my other question now is, we're going to go more into sport now. Now, as I mentioned before in my statement, I said that the world is changing. Women's football is slowly but surely coming up very soon, and it's great to have there's the male and the female becoming equal. Do you think we are there yet, as terms of, in your opinion, as women's football? Do you think we have got to a position where we have fully accepted it, not 75%? Do you think we are fully accepted in the world at the moment?
No, I think far from it. As you said, we are on the right path. I think, the growth of the game has been amazing to be a part of, to follow. And you see it every tournament. The interest is growing. More and more girls start to play football. Stories of these amazing athletes around the world, and it also affects the leagues. In England, the league is getting better. In WSL in USA, parts. France and Spain, you will have a couple of teams that have made it amazingly over the last decade. But at the same time, I don't think we are there where there's that gap between the male athletes and female athletes. I think there's still a way to go. But change doesn't happen overnight. As long as the intention is there, the ambitions to change, and you have forces and people who are trying to do that, um, it it will come. So I'm optimistic in that regard. But in terms of like equal, fully equal, 100%, not yet. No.
Now, also, I also want to talk about struggles. And the reason why I say that is because everyone who wants to be successful has obstacles. Now, everyone has a struggling path. I have a struggling path. When I first became a journalist, it was very difficult for me to becoming because I was a British Asian. It wasn't just, I was very stereotyped. I'm a man who's got a beard. I'm a man who's brown. It's very difficult. Now, obviously, you being a women's footballer, but having these obstacles, do you remember those days where you were struggling and how did you overcome it?
I mean, definitely. Listen, I was born in Afghanistan. I'm Muslim. I came to Denmark. I used to be way more brown, but brown skinned girl, not understanding language. I think there's been so many obstacles around me. To start with, there's always been these, I think, cultural traditional views on how girls were supposed to behave and Afghan girls supposed to behave. I'm not gonna say religious because I don't think that's correct. It's just misinterpretation of it. And then coming to as you said, a foreign country where you're an outsider, and you are treated differently, and you have to learn to cope with it. And one thing that I think I've gotten since I was a kid, and that's I'm grateful for my parents, I assume, is that I'm so I'll say I'm so easy to accept things. I adapt because what other choice do you have? These are the cards that you have in your hands. How can you make the best play out of this? So that's always been mindset, and that's how feel I could always overcome these obstacles of like, yeah, you're never gonna play for the Danish national team because you're not Danish. I had to fight and prove them wrong. Became the first, non-Dane on a on Danish national team. Any youth, male, female. Certain point, I started to become a doctor. At the beginning, when I was studying at university, I was told off that yeah, you cannot be a professional footballer and then also become a doctor. That obstacle. And when I was younger, I had to hide myself playing football with boys because Afghan girls didn't do that. And my mom would be saying, they don't really understand you. So in terms of reputation, you have to kind of save your reputation because if you hang out with boys, then you'll have like a bad reputation, which I didn't understand. I was a kid. The only thing I wanted to do was compete, become better, and they're the only people who were playing at that point. So a lot of like obstacles, but for me, I think that's part of the life. That's what makes it beautiful, and the best part is when you overcome an obstacle, the growth that you see in yourself is, yeah, it's hard to find anywhere else. So there has been a lot of it, but I've embraced it and enjoyed it.
What was it like? I think the viewers and the people, I mean, are very intrigued of what you said, but what was it like playing for PSG, of such a renowned football club and such a influential football club? What was the structure like, and what was it like playing for them on a daily basis?
I loved it. I think one of the best places I've been. I think the PSG as a organization is a massive, massive club, male and female side. I think when I came there, they hadn't won the league in 20 years, and I think I came from Man City, and they wanted me to change that, be a part of the mentality change, and playing in front of the fans, you could feel the love for the game. The fans were incredible. I think, the organization did so much for the women's game. Yeah, it was an honor, honestly. I loved every part of it. I was there for 2.5, almost 3 years. But after 3 years winning the league, I was like, that was my mission accomplished. But still have really good connection with everyone involved in PSG, and I can only say only positive things about the club and organization. I think what they're doing is incredible.
Now, that's a brilliant statement you said there. Now, in terms of Denmark, obviously you're playing on such a huge international stage. So I'd like to know your diet and also your fitness program. Obviously, when it comes in to do diet, fitness is obviously very important. What's your
Mhm.
diet and your fitness like?
That's a great question, Kieran. Um, I am, to be honest, I'm one of those people that is really in balance in what I do and what I eat. Of course, I have to eat super healthy to be able to perform at that level. We perform, we train every day. You sometimes have twice training in a day, one a lift and then football. Um, and for me, diet's always been about balance. I'm not super fanatic about like only eating a certain thing because I don't want to gain fat or I want to lose fat, whatever. For me, it's all about balance. If you understand your body, if you're craving something, I'll listen to it. So for me, it's like a variation of every food. I eat everything, not really picky either. But of course, I know the timing of it. Before games, you have to overload with carbs because that's your fuel, that's the engine that keeps you going during a game. After trainings, you need to have a lot of proteins because you've just broken down your body and it needs the blocks to rebuild. And also there's space for me to indulge myself in things that I like, ice cream, sweets. Has to be a balance. And also I think you know my well-being as a human being is so important. Mental health, my physical well-being, I take extremely good care of myself because I have so many goals and ambitions all the time, and I think I'm running in such a high speed all the time that I don't want to break down. And so the times I feel like, okay, this is getting too much, I can shut it down. I always choose myself first. I'm like, okay, this is getting out of control. I'm not sleeping well. I'm like, listen, I'm just gonna take a step back because I have to protect myself. So, and I think that has enabled me to do what I do. Have a lot of projects going on all the time, and I'm happy. That's the main thing.
Absolutely, absolutely, Nadia. Now, you said something that I just picked up about mental health. Mental health is a situation that most people in the world do sort of recover, but at the same time do suffer from. Now, as a footballer, you have a lot of, how do I say it in other words, responsibilities. What's your thoughts on mental health overall in terms of women's football, and how does has mental health affected you? And if it has, how have you overcome it?
Yeah, I mean it's a big, big topic, not only in women's game. It's kind of everywhere. But I think in terms of right now, we spoke about the growth of the game, and with growth there also comes expectations, pressure, more eyes, more people to judge you. I think at a certain point you could just be in your own little bubble, and there wasn't all that to deal with. Suddenly, it's just been put on top of you, and at times it can be demanding, it can be difficult. Luckily for me, I would say it's not something that I've dealt with that much or never. And I think it's just because of my background, how I put things in perspective at times. And also I think I have a really thick skin, and I try to distinguish between what is happening, and people's opinions, and then the one that is close to me, my core people. Those people are more important for me than anything else happening around it. So in that way, I think I've been lucky enough to be able to not get affected by it that much. Because at times, with social media, I feel like the access to you is so close, and when you have 8 billion people, if not more, having an opinion about everything that you do, or on your performance on the field. And if you cannot, take a step back from that, it can really be difficult. And hopefully, if you're the right place, have the right infrastructure around you, the network, the people that understand you, they will be able to help you out from those situations as well.
Now, you said something about responsibility. Responsibility, obviously, you as an individual, as a human, but also at the same time as a footballer. Do you feel like Do you feel like you have responsibility on your shoulders for other Afghanistan women that want to portray in your footsteps? That you sort of have this lead where you can show them that anything is possible, regardless what country you come from.
Yeah, I mean, it's no, I don't feel it's like a forced responsibility. I think sometimes the responsibility by the words can seem to be a bit forced, put upon of you. I think it's a privilege for me. I love the fact that I'm in a position, have a platform where I can inspire and show what's possible, not only for Afghans, but in general for everyone who, have struggled with something, and show what we as human beings are capable of doing if you put your mind to it and you work hard towards something. But for the Afghan, women in terms of education and sport, definitely, I do try to do everything in my power to change the narrative that's happening right now. And as I said to start with, I'm positive and I'm an optimistic person by nature, and I'm pretty sure that it will change at a certain point.
Now, I also want to know the difference between the fitness, physical training compared to the PSG and also to Denmark. Everyone's got their own sort of fitness and how strict they are. What's the difference, and what is more, how do I say it in other words, not brutal, but what is more firm in terms of fitness training compared to compared to both teams?
It really depends on the playing style of the team to start with. I think before in preseason, the coach is going to set up like a formation playing style. How do we want to play? Are we going to be someone like Bielsa, people who know football, the Uruguayan national team coach, who has a style of direct play, high pressure, all the time, 90 minutes, go, go, go. If you want to play like that, you need a lot of fitness. And then preseason are going to be horrible, they're going to kill you. um but if you're more possession based, and you want to like keep the ball, still want to do a lot of intense running, but it's more with the ball, then the fitness training is going to be a bit different. It's a bit more with ball. What are you capable of doing when you're under pressure with the ball? So it really depends. For me in PSG, I think we had a bit of both. We had a strength coach. His name was Pierre. He came from the men's rugby game. That guy was insane. I've never ran so much. He used to make us, you have these tests before preseason, like VO2 max, to see where you are, what's your capability, how much can we pressure you. And then he used to literally press everything out of you. And I think I was in great shape. But same also, like on the national teams, normally you don't do that much of fitness because you come in from club football and you're already there. It's more tactical before the big games. You might before tournament. Right now, for instance, during the World Cup, all the national teams, if they had time, they meet in for a couple of weeks before, 3 4 weeks before, and then they do fitness training. And also it's very divided depending on your position. If you are a striker, you need to be able to do a lot of high intense sprint running, but the load might not be that big. If you are a number six on the midfield, you have to do cover a lot of ground, but then you are not capable of doing high intensity running. It's more like 80%, like kind of. And if you're outside backs, the same. You have to be able to keep that running. And if you're a keeper, you just don't run that much.
Absolutely, absolutely, Nadia. Now, I want to talk more about business. Now, what I mean by
Mm,
that is last year I was invited to the Ballon d'Or, and I was
mm.
invited to cover on the red carpet to interview certain PSG footballers. And my main question to them was very simple. What's your plans? What's your plans after when you become a footballer? Because as a footballer, there's only a certain amount of time you become a footballer until you have injuries, etc. Now, when you retire or when you decide enough is enough, have you decided in the next 5 to 6 years what your game plan is outside of football?
Yeah, I decided this when I was 12 years old. I graduated as a doctor 4 years ago, so I'm definitely gonna be a doctor. But at the same time, I think I have so many things going on. I think I'm a privileged and incredible lucky to be in a place where I have so many options. You know, as mentioned, I do work in television at times. I do a lot of work for FIFA, UEFA, in football. Try to be a part of the change and the growth of the game. I do have a couple of businesses in Denmark, so I think I can kind of pick and choose as I want. But in reality, probably is going to be that I want to do a bit of everything. My personality is I get a bit bored of doing the same things, and I want challenges. I wanted to grow as a human being, and who knows, maybe in a couple of years I've picked up something different and I'm doing something totally different. But for now, definitely love to be a doctor. I think it's an amazing job. You know, you we talk about pressure and we talk about responsibility. I think those are words that I enjoy. I wanted to be a person having that in my time, in my, you know, daily life. And as a doctor, you can be the last person trying to save someone. In Doctors Without Borders, I think what they do is incredible. I can see myself working for them. So many ambitions, so many goals, and sometimes I feel I wish I had a bit more time during a day.
No, I understood, Nadia. Now, in terms of the World Cup, as you know, the whole world has gone mad. On Wednesday, England are playing. We just recently just won, but obviously on Wednesday we are playing. Now, from your perspective, I would like to know who you think is going to win the World Cup. Besides you being biased towards your national team, etc., or your
Yeah.
country, who do you think in your position? That from your perspective, from your psychology, who do you think has the best chance in getting to the finals?
Yeah, to start with, I am not biased because Denmark didn't qualify for the World Cup. That's very easy. So no
Mm,
bias there. Number
mm,
two, I think there are a couple of teams who are really in good shape and they have the quality and the depth and the experience. One of them is France.
mhm.
If you see that team, the way they play, the players they have, all these Cherki, Mbappe, Dembele, like defense and attack, they are probably the strongest team on paper. Question is going to be if they're going to, you know, come together and be able to perform. You know, they won the first game against Senegal, but I want to see when they meet you know, tougher opponent, are they going to be able to do the same? As I said, experience because they've won the World Cup before, Mbappe already. Secondly, I would say Spain, European champions, everyone knows what they're capable of. Again, good team, but they have a more cohesive team. It's a team, and then you have one, two quality players, world class players in Yamal, who, you know, is his first World Cup, and I think he's so motivated to show the world what he's capable of, as he did in the Euros. And lastly, you spoke about England. You know, I know every time there's a World Cup, a tournament, everyone starts saying it's coming home, it's coming home. And I've worked for ITV, and I, you know, I've lived in Manchester because I played for City, so I kind of know the atmosphere, and also I know that at times I'm like, yeah, okay, we sing this every time. But this year, this is the first time that I feel it actually is possible. And I tell you why. It's very simple. Simple. I think one, they seemed they seem so concentrated on it. Secondly, I feel like Thomas Tuchel has been incredible for this team. If you watch the qualification games before the World Cup and how they qualified, previous tournament qualifications, they've always struggled with, you know, they always had like this 1-2 game where they weren't there, and you're like, yeah, on paper you should have like run over this team, but you did draw, they lost. Hasn't happened. There's like full concentration. I think that's the German mentality that he kind of has, you know, pumped into the squad. And secondly, I really like the way he selected his team. I know there was a bit of like, you know, discussion about who he has left behind, but that shows a great manager because he took players who are in shape, who are in form. Maybe not the names that you normally are used to, you know, Alexander Arnold, Palmer not being a part of it, but he brought people who are in shape. And I think the first game, when you watch them, not the greatest first half, but how they changed and they play attacking football. They're more direct and they have, you know, Premier League is one of the toughest league in the world, and you have a lot of their players playing the Premier League used to the high intensity, the pressure. And then I think most of all, Harry Kane seems to be in the top, you know, shape of his life. He's incredible, and I think all of those factors together make them, for me, one of the favorites. Also,
Absolutely, Nadia. Now, I want to ask you a more non-controversial question. It's something that you probably have got before. I'm sure we've all got that question. Now, some people believe that Ronaldo is the best player in the world. Some people believe Messi is the best player. Now, you are a very technical footballer. You probably know more than I do, even though I'm just a reporter, but you'll understand the techniques and the skills. Now, without you being having your favourite, who do you think is a better footballer, but at the same time, regardless of the image on social media, who do you think outplays and has the strongest techniques?
Right now, this is a hard debate, you know. I think you will have like one group talking about Messi, and then you have the Ronaldo fans going against each other. And I think this debate's been going on for the last 20 years. To start with, I just want to say that I feel we are honored and we were privileged to have been able to witness this for 20 years. You don't understand how hard it is to perform at this level for such a long time. If you think about it, how many players have you ever remembered that perform at this level 5 years in a row, like after each other? There's not a lot of them. So for me, I want to put it out there. I don't think I want to take sides, but as it looks right now, Messi is in a better shape. He's in a better form, I think. And if you watch their first games, I also watch, you know, I follow Ronaldo. I love Ronaldo. I think what he's done for the game is, you know, is the GOAT. The same with Messi. I think these two are the greatest I've ever seen. But one of them seemed to have seemed to be a bit in his head, and I think it's the pressure wanted to, if you want something so bad and if you want to, like, you know, be that person, you want to score the goals and you want to win the World Cup because you haven't won it yet, it becomes a bit forced, unfortunately. And then on the other side, you have the other guy who feels like he doesn't have to prove anything. He's won the World Cup. He's just out playing with his mates and then scores a hat trick. So I think in shape, who's a better footballer right now? In shape, I think Messi seems to be in a better shape and up to this World Cup. And Ronaldo didn't have the best game. Didn't have the previous game in these friendlies. Didn't have a great game either. But one thing that you know about Ronaldo is Cristiano Ronaldo. Like, that guy is a machine. He's built different. You know, at that age, being able to perform at that level with that mentality, the mindset, I think he still, you know, can show up. And I'm waiting for that moment during this World Cup.
Absolutely, absolutely, Nadia. Now, I want to go back into more Afghanistan. Now, is there any footballers or women footballers or men's footballers that you can vouch for and you can say they're upcoming, but I think they should be recognised internationally? Or is there any footballers that you think currently right now playing that are doing extremely well, that are representing Afghanistan through international or national teams?
Um, I think on the women's side it's a bit hard. I'm super pleased to being a part of that. You know, with Khalida Popal, one a friend of mine, former Afghanistan national team captain, who has been on exile for a really long time. You know, there's been people who've been fighting to get this Afghan women's national team recognized internationally. I think a lot of them are spread out all over the world. We've been able to. Get, you know, the permission by FIFA for them to be able to play under Afghanistan United, and then not under the Afghan Federation, because that's in Afghanistan. That's a big step, first time ever in the history of the game that's happened. Now that will let them, give them the opportunity to compete and represent the country. I think that's the first step, and then, you know, there's going to be camps where we will try to make this team to a strong team to potentially be able to compete for the World Cup spots. You know, in the future. On the male side, you know, cricket, as you know, is the strongest sport in Afghanistan. I think the males, I know a lot of the players, they're doing really well, but still not at that level where we can compete in the world stage yet. I've seen their qualifiers. I'll follow what they do. Good teams, you know, it's a lot of movement happening, but it takes time. You know, the country's been in war for such a long time, and now slowly, sports is becoming a part of the life again, and I'm excited to see what, you know, the future will bring. But one thing that I want to say is, talking about, you know, Afghan heritage and players who are representing Afghan culture at that level. Yesterday, you know, one of a good friend of mine, Nadim Amiri, who plays for Mainz and the German national team, He was being selected his first World Cup for Germany, and yeah, he came in, had an assist, and I think that's a massive representation. And the reason I would say this is because you live in Europe, I live in Europe, and you spoke about being brown and how at times it's hard to be in an environment where you not fully accepted, and also um, at times feel unwanted, how the media and everything is around you. And then you see the stories like myself, who represents Denmark, and you do positive impact. And you see Amiri, who again also is not German, but is showing that you can come from a different part of the world, and then you can be a part of the collectiveness, and then represent and make them proud as well. So I think that's a great representation, a great image to see, and I'm super proud of him.
Absolutely, absolutely, Nadia. Now, my other question now is AI. What's your thoughts on AI? AI, the reason why I want to bring this up is because the reason why AI is been implemented around the world in all sports, even VAR, I mean, they use it now. What's your thoughts on VAR? And do you think it's necessity, or do you think VAR is a good thing or a bad thing for football?
I think it's a good thing. I think nowadays there's so much on stake, and there's so much money in the sport, and all decision, everything has become so fast, and every decision could have like a massive impact if you want to win, if you're gonna win the Champions League, if you're gonna qualify for the next round. So at times, as a referee, it's a tough job to be able to see everything. So having VAR a part of making the big decision keyword, I think is important, and I am fan of it. What I'm not fan of is right now watching the World Cup, and there's like all these extra breaks, and you VAR suddenly also intervenes, and if there's corner kick or not, that up to debate. I'm not fan of it, because I think it takes something away from the game. And then sometimes this unpredictable outcome of a game, where you have like a strong team and then maybe an underdog, and the weather maybe could play a role, the pitch could play a role. Sometimes the referee probably had his best game, and something magical could happen and the underdog could win. I think we're going far away from that. So that part, I think again it's up to debate. I probably am a bit old school, and I want sometimes to, I believe in luck at times, or coincidence, or a day you had a good day. So I don't know. In terms of VAR, I think I'm probably no. In terms of AI, I'm probably the wrong person to ask, because I barely know how to turn on my laptop. So I think it's a great thing, because it can help a lot of people. It makes things easier, and especially when it comes to education and knowledge. But at the same time, I feel it's making people dumber, because you are not thinking that much yourself. Someone's doing all the thinking for you, and I think that's something that at the end of the day will lead for you not to learn yourself. So it depends how you're going to use AI. But again, I'm probably not the expert on this topic.
No problem. Now, on our second question I asked you is about women's football. It's very important we touch about this because women's football is making a huge change, but at the same time, as you said, we've got a long way to go. Where do you see women's football, and where do you see people in the next 5 to 10 years, how they look at women's football in a different matter than it would be how they look at it today?
I think from a investment point, first and foremost, I start with this because I am romantic. I know sport is something that's supposed is fun, and then you see all these stories about the underdogs, making great things, but in reality, I think finances and performance go hand to hand. The teams, and you can see the last 15, 20 years in Premier League, for instance, the teams with the biggest budget perform re- by generally really well. Man City, Arsenal last this year. So if you apply the same thought and philosophy into the women's game, then I think the fact that people have maybe started understand that there is a potential market for also for finance, that you as a sponsor, will get something out of it. I think that has been crucial. It's already happened, but you want it to happen more. You see way more games on TV. You see more female athletes being represented in commercials. So all of that is going to be super important for the growth of the game, because at the end of the day, what always, you know, gets bigger, it's when there's an interest in it. Interest, when there's people interest, you also have, financial interest. So everything is kind of like a circle, and as I said, we're on the path. You just have to continue, and hopefully within the 10 years we will get closer to a point where the gap is not that big. But I don't think we will ever arrive where it will be totally equal. I don't think that. I mean, I'm optimistic, but I'm also a realist. I think um, not in my lifetime.
Absolutely. And my last question to you: what message would you like to tell the young Afghanistan people who have a pursuit becoming footballers, but at the same time, as you know, as we've said before, we spoke about it, the Taliban have taken over Afghanistan politically and may not be able to give the advantages or the chances like yourself and other people, but at the same time, you did have a lot of obstacles in your way. What would you tell the young people out there who are watching this today?
I mean, I would say, at times life can be unfair, and you'll be in situations where you feel there's no hope. But the one thing you should never lose is your hope. I think always believe that things will change. Always fight for that. There are a lot of people trying to improve things for the better. So still have that light in your, in the end of the tunnel, and hopefully things will change for the better. Because that's the only thing you can do at this point. What other alternatives will there be? So yeah, stick in there. Hope that things will be better in the future.
Nadia Nadim, I want to say thank you so much for talking to us on the front line. We really appreciate it. And it was an honor talking to you. And congratulations on all your success. And we wish you the very best for the future.
Thank you, Kieran. Thanks for having me again, and good to see you again, my
Good to
friend.
see you again. Let me just pause this 1 second. 1 second.